Hi guys, welcome to the new video. Today we'll be staying in the northwest of Middle-earth. Regarding the time frame, let's say it's sometimes after the War of the Ring, which did not end up the same as the book tells us. The video is called The Last Stand, exactly because it deals with the consequences of the defeat in the south, in Gondor, and what options remain for the free peoples, or more precisely, how long will they remain free? Let's start with a change in the storyline. The Battle of the Pelennor Fields was a great victory for the forces of the West, but Gandalf knows it for what it is. Just a delay of Sauron's final victory, if the One Ring is not destroyed. Therefore, Aragorn leads his army to Morannon to persuade Sauron that he is in possession of the One Ring, trying to divert his eye from Frodo and his quest. What neither Aragorn nor Gandalf know is the simple truth. Frodo has failed. He was captured after being poisoned by Shelob, and Sam was captured too, while trying to save his master from Cirith Ungol, instead of continuing the quest when he has taken the One Ring from seemingly dead Frodo. The Ungol orcs did not fight the Morgul orcs, and so it was not hard for them to overwhelm the single hobbit. Now, when Sauron is in possession of the One Ring, he can easily trap the captains of the West in the battle in front of the Black Gate. When the mouth of Sauron brings the Mithril Code to Aragorn, he also mentions the two captured hobbits and the torture they are facing. The forces of the West refuse to surrender and are surrounded by the well-prepared forces of Mordor and its allies. At this time, Sauron reveals he really has his One Ring back. Not even the coming of great eagles can save the day, and the forces of the West are butchered, the captains falling one by one. Pippin, Legolas, Gimli, Imrahil, Eomer, and even Aragorn are killed, fighting heroically to the last breath. In the end, Gandalf sees no other way than to get on the back of Gwaihir the eagle and fly away from this massacre. Needless to say, this escape from battle and leaving his friends to die has broken Gandalf's heart and soul. Gwaihir has taken him to Lorien, where he informed Lady Galadriel of the upcoming danger. Now Sauron can easily conquer Gondor, Rohan, and then the fate of Lorien is set in stone. No one can stop the Dark Lord now. But the elves of the Golden Wood decided to make a stand and help the refugees coming from the south and east as long as possible. This brave decision showed the broken Gandalf that there is still something to fight for. He traveled to Rivendell to speak with Elrond, and there he decided to work on creating the last alliance of free peoples of Middle-earth. It will take time, so he needs a place of safety, far from danger, where he can begin: Lindon. In the meantime, the elves of Lorien and Rivendell, as well as those of the woodland realm of Mirkwood, will be buying him time for his effort. Again, this meant sacrificing his friends and his best allies. Moreover, for a mission of no real hope. Now, when we know what our goal will be, let's make a short overview of Middle-earth collectible card game rules we'll be using to create this Fallen Wizard deck. We will be building a deck for 2-deck game, with 30 to 50 resources and the same number of hazards. 12 creature minimum is mandatory for everyone, but I prefer an equal number of creatures as other hazards in my decks, without the need to count a hunt and at-home dragon manifestations, as well as other creatures playable as permanent or short events, else half the creature each. This deck will be no exception. Also, we will prepare a sideboard of 25 cards to complement this play deck. As mentioned before, the center of gravity for our effort today will be the northwest of Middle-earth. The advantage of this region is obvious. It's far from the main strongholds of Sauron, with the exception of Angmar, which, although not completely abandoned, is not in full strength yet. We will be using the regions around the White Towers, which will be our first base, in a land turned into the wilderness since the years of the Númenórean kings. The only exceptions are Lindon, where the last remnants of Noldor elves keep evil at bay, and the Shire, with its merry folk. The rest of the peoples and tribes we have to depend on is to be found in small areas of civilization, and we will need to persuade them to cooperate if there should be any chance of some sort of united defense when Sauron's army arrives. As a fallen wizard, we begin our journey at the White Towers. Because most of the heroes of this age have fallen already, we don't have overly rich choice of who to work with. We must look at what is available in this part of the world. And of course, as a fallen wizard, we can't use characters with a mind attribute higher than 5. The leader of our group will be Beretar, one of the Northern Rangers chieftains, who missed the famous ride south while on other errand. The 2 leaders of elves in the region have each sent us their representative. Galdor has come from Círdan, Gildor Inglorion from Elrond. Gildor was accompanied by Gandalf's old friend, Bilbo Baggins, who is very old indeed, but feels he has to help nevertheless. The last member of the starting company is Barliman Butterboor, an innkeeper from Bree. Thus, most of the nations of Eriador are represented. The 2 minor items these characters will have from the start are Dagger of Westerness and Horn of Anor, and we will focus a lot on mustering various tribes for a common defense against the Dark Lord's forces. As a fallen wizard, we also need 3 stage points. To fulfill this requirement, we will start with Gandalf's friend, Thrall of the Voice, and Wizard's Myrmidon cards. There are multiple ways how we can tackle the first organization phase. I had most success with the following layout. Beretar, with the Thrall of the Voice card, takes the Horn of Anor. Galdor, as a Wizard's Myrmidon, takes the Dagger of Westerness and influences Gildor Inglorion, using the +1 direct influence bonus he has against elves. And then Bilbo, who becomes Gandalf's friend, influences Barliman Butterboor. I know this last pair looks like they will spend most of their time at the Prancing Pony Inn, drinking beer and discussing news from abroad. And well, you are not too far from the truth. More or less, it will be their part in the later stages of the game. But now we will need Bilbo's scout and sage skill set. Regarding the first movement, there is no need to hurry somewhere, so you can choose to go wherever you like, depending on the resources you have in hand, or just remain put until you have somewhere to go. One note here. This deck composes a lot of resource events which may or may not be used, so discard freely. It's better to get through the deck quickly than keep staying in one place without having anything to do. Now to the pool of characters we will bring into play from the play deck. It's a mix of hero and minion ones, with 2 agents to be used as characters. 2 copies of Fallen Gandalf are mandatory, but who remained in the north during the turbulent times of the War of the Ring. We can depend on Arwen, who, although heart-stricken from the loss of Aragorn, will do her best to keep his memory alive. Then there is Gloin, an old dwarf who returned to Rivendell to seek help and advice when the situation of Erebor became untenable. Fourthly, a Lossot maiden willing to fight the never-ending winter, and then 3 hobbits from the Shire, friends of Frodo and his companions, Fatty Bolger, Folco Boffin, and Robin Smallborough. The minion characters are represented by Dogrip, another Lossot from the ice-covered lands of Forochel, and Dunlanding Spy, who served Saruman but now is masterless and can be persuaded to help another wizard. The 2 agents are Dror, a dwarf from the Blue Mountains, and Uoma, the 3rd and final Lossot included. As you can see, the characters represent not only the different peoples living in the former kingdom of Arnor, but also the lack of human and non-human resources available there after the war in the south was lost. I should also mention that nobody expects you to get all the characters into play. Choose wisely, and use only those you need, because free general influence is more important than strength of companies, as there are not as many dangers we will face, hopefully. Making up for our losses, maybe with slight additions, should be more than enough for this deck to succeed. If we have a look at what the point-giving resources are, you can see there are less items than usually. It's because there are not as many sites where we could play them, and also because we will focus more on mastering factions than searching for lost treasures. We will try to master the army more than anything else. There is only one ally, Goldberry, which is risky, but with a little bit of care she will remain an integral part of our company, as her special effect will be of constant use, I suppose. Then there are 4 factions: Hobbits, Lossot, Rangers of the North, and Vosses of Erinvorn. You can swap some of them for those from sideboard, but again there is a hidden logic in the choice of these 4, which you will see when we get to the sideboard. From the items there are Durin's Axe, Gandalf's own sword Glamdring, 2 Palantirs of Anuminas and of Elostirion, and a sapling of the White Tree, to give us hope that somewhere, somehow, an heir to the throne of Arnor may have survived. The point-giving permanent events are Align Palantir, which enables us to use the recovered Seeing Stones, Barrow Blade to upgrade our Dagger of Westerness, Dark Numbers, and When You Know More, and also 2 copies of the Guarded Heaven, of which we will need to use both. The rest of the resource events is a mix of some standard cards, faction play helping cards, and attack cancellation cards. You should be able to play or discard most of these cards quickly. Each faction should have its own support card, and the rest are events you can either play right now or keep for a maximum of 1 or 2 rounds. Here I would like to mention just a few cards which are not used very often, but you will find them in this deck. The first is Farmer Maggot. It is usable only in Arthedain, Cardolan and the Shire, but exactly these regions are the center of gravity for this deck. As a permanent, you can play it right away, and it works as an attack cancelling card which you do not need to keep in your hand. The Glamour of Surpassing Excellence card could be a great help against corruption and or similar cards, especially when your company suffers from multiple of these irritations. But as a short event, it is a one-and-done relief attempt. It could be returned back by the Smoke Rings card though. Hobbit Lore, on the other hand, helps Gandalf influence hobbits. You will find it useful if your starting company suffers losses and you are replacing the eliminated characters by the bunch of hobbits. And finally, Horns card can give you a second attempt for mastering the factions you either had to discard or fail to influence. As a Fallen Wizard, we do not use only hero resources, but also our special Fallen and also minion ones. The Fallen Wizard resource events in this deck consist of 1 Gandalf-specific card, Chambers in the Royal Court, which turns 1 freehold into our heaven, 1 Hidden Heaven card, and 2 more copies of the Thrall of the Voice card. The minion resource events are mostly usual cards and Voices of Malice card copies. But Weigh All Things to a Nicety finds a good use immediately when it comes in hand, while Tidings of Death could be more than useful while playing factions. The cards I did not mention are either to be used quickly or discarded, the same as the hero resource events mentioned before. The time has come to discuss where to play each of the point-giving resources. The sites are listed in alphabetical order for easier orientation. Let's start with the factions. Each has its own site where it is playable, and all have also a resource which helps us influence the faction in hand. The single ally, Goldberry, is only playable at the Old Forest. When You Know More permanent event needs an information site to be played. Here you may decide to either play it easily at Weathertop, or if you have the right characters, you may use the Worthy Hills, but you must not forget to untap the site afterwards. The Worthy Hills need to be untapped and turned into a hidden heaven, and then even guarded heaven, for the success of this deck. Moreover, there are 2 factions to be played there, so keep a character there at all times, as soon as you turn this site into your heaven. Palantir of Elosterion can be played safely at the White Towers, and either stored there or kept with Bilbo, preferably, who can use it every turn, if you want. Palantir of Anuminas you play at Losedan Cairn, and also give it to Bilbo, or store it, whatever you feel more comfortable with. The 3 major items you can play in any order at the 3 sites made for them. And finally, Blue Mountain Dwarfhold will become our second guarded heaven, with the chambers in the Royal Court played first. And here again we will need to keep 1 character at all times. As soon as your wizard is in play and there is no need to keep him untapped, tap him during the organization phase and bring 5 resources from the sideboard into the discard pile. We will need practically every single sideboard resource this time, as there is no great abundance of points available otherwise. Beginning with allies. There are 3 of them, all of which should be controlled by characters who do not move regularly, as there are strict movement restrictions for 2 of them, Mistress Lobelia and Tom Bombadil, while the last one, Bill the Pony, can move everywhere but will be a constant target for attacking creatures. Next, we have 3 more factions, 3 major items, 1 more Palantir, the one formerly from Amon Suld, and then 5 permanent events. Dreams of Lore represent hope for the desperate free peoples with their back to the sea. Wizard's Trove allows the White Tree to be played. Grey Embassy increases the points we get from factions, and finally, await the onset. This card is the heart and soul of this deck. To this end all our efforts lead. As soon as we get this card into play, we can say the mission was completed and call it the end. On the other hand, I have to admit, I personally had a lot of trouble playing it, as the conditions are quite demanding and opponents usually have no respect for your efforts. Let's have a look at where we will play the resources from the sideboard, starting with allies again. We will go for Tom Bombadil to Old Forest. Mistress Lobelia and Bill the Pony can be played at back end or Bree, both, so it's up to you where you will play whom. The 3 factions have each its unique side, and you should be able to use a supporting resource for each of them. The second Lost Palantir will be found again at Losedan Cairn. The 3 major items are to be played at the 3 sites designated for them. Because we should already have Blue Mountain Dwarfhold turned into heaven, with 1 character positioned there, we can influence the Blue Mountain Dwarfs and tap the site, but still keep the character there in order to be able to play Wizard's Trove and the White Tree. And that's all, folks. Nothing complicated in there. Don't you feel so? Regarding the hazards. Today I have prepared maybe the most effective hazard deck one can get. You may argue, you may disagree, but that's the most you can do about it. Such a hazards deck is usually called Wolves and Spiders. Now, to why I feel so strongly about it. Mainly because it is highly playable against most companies. The creatures rotate quickly and are strong enough individually to cause problems too, while usually not being defeated themselves, thus depriving your opponent of valuable kill points. There are enough power-enhancing cards for you to increase the already sufficient number of strikes the creatures have, and also the strength, which although not great, is high enough to hurt the weaker members of opponents' companies, who can't be protected by the first-line killers due to the already mentioned number of strikes. The high playability of these creatures ensures usually multiple attacking creatures during one travel, which increases the chance of hurting your opponent seriously and delaying him in his missions. Let's have a look at what creatures we'll use here. The first I would mention the Nazgul. Those of you who have seen my previous videos already know that I like to put in one Nazgul hazard creature into each of my hazard decks. He is used mostly as a permanent event, providing additional support to the hazard deck's main topic. Today we will use two of them. Dwarf of War as a creator of works and other hound breeds, and also Hoarmurath of Dir, the wild northerner. The wolf part of the deck contains 3 copies of dire wolves, wargs and wolves. The spider part is more diversified. 3 copies of both giant and lesser spiders are clear, but then we'll add 1 copy of Shelob's brood, Shelob herself to be used as a permanent event as soon as we have Doors of Night in play, and Spider of Morla, also to be played as a permanent event to beef up our spider attacks even more. With these 2 unique spiders in play, we nicely add 2 strikes and 1 prowess to each spider attack, with some regions also receiving a spider automatic attack. This I call Arachnophobia. To add even more juice to this spider and wolf nightmare, let's use some hazard events we will discuss now. The Doors of Night are here twice, not only to enable us to play Shelob as a permanent, but also because of other cards. For example, Clouds, which give nice prowess bonus to all creatures. Then the Will of Sauron card, also playable only with the Doors of Night in play, turns all hazard long events into permanent ones. Very nice for the aforementioned Clouds, or Wake of War that increases the number of strikes and prowess of our wolves and spider creatures. Therefore, it is 3 times in this deck. We can't omit Full of Froth and Rage card, also 3 times here, which gives prowess bonus to all spiders. 3 copies of Fellwinter create a wolf automatic attack at border holes. And something has slipped is decreasing the prowess of each character when one of the company members is wounded, and thus creates an easy target for our next attack. Then there is Monstrosity of Diverse Shape. This one is meant to be used against Balrog decks, but I have put it here due to its effect. It enables us to play wolf creature from discard pile if the card has already attacked the same company this turn. Flies and Spiders card can take a character prisoner, giving us multiple chances to kill the character, or forces our opponent to face the rescue attack by our beefed up spiders if we fail to kill the prisoner quickly. The rest of the hazard events are either usual cards like an Unexpected Outpost or Master Disperses, or hazards specifically against Fallen Wizard, like Blind to All Else. We do not need to spend time with those. Let's rather have a look at the hazard part of the sideboard. Again, there are 5 more creatures and 5 more hazard events. Because we have run out of wolves and spiders, we will use the halving of our opponent hazard limit for bringing some animals into the discard pile. I have decided to put there 2 annoying creatures, Trebine and Sneaker Breakers, and 2 which can attack in coastal regions, Fell Turtle and 2 copies of Watcher in the water. Especially Watcher, with added strength due to the use of our prowess enhancing cards, becomes a lethal weapon. The 5 events consist of 4 cards against Fallen Wizards, where power relinquished to Artifice is probably the most powerful one. News of Doom is a card you must think twice before using. It's very effective against opponents' factions, but you will have to roll the dice for each of yours too, so have enough free general influence and a little bit of luck on your side before you decide to use it. If you are not playing a deck based on faction play against an opponent who is mastering armies, there is no better way how to destroy his effort in a single stroke. And that's all I have prepared for today. Gandalf has either succeeded in creating the last bastion of defense against Sauron's forces, or he failed and Middle-earth has fallen under darkness for good. If you like the video, please give me a thumb up and leave a comment regarding what you disagree with in this deck or what you would do differently, for example. Every single player has a unique feeling for the game, and I do not pretend I know everything best. If you would also consider subscribing, it will be very much appreciated, as it makes a large difference for me, because nearly 90% of people watching these videos are not subscribed to the channel. Next time we will have a look at what it takes for a successful quest to regain Erebor. See you next time.